Welcome back to WorkTech, everyone. I'm George LaRocque, and we've got some more exciting industry funding news. This time, a really innovative talent engagement platform called Sense announced a $50 million Series D round of venture capital. And joining me today is Sense's CEO and founder, Anil Dharni. Welcome, Anil.
Thank you so much for having me, George.
Oh, it's really glad that you could make the time for us. I know it's a busy time for you. And this is, I'm really interested to dig in on this category. We were talking before the recording, and I really see engagement, and not, I don't mean it in a broad employee engagement sense, but this engagement category is going to define the future of recruiting tech. And there are a few different capabilities that are core to that, and you seem to hit on a few of those. So it's sort of the evolution of the experience conversation that we've been having, and I'm really excited to spend a few minutes sharing what you're doing with the market. And let's start with a little bit about you and Sense. Would you mind introducing both to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Anil Dharni. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Sense. I've been a serial entrepreneur here in the Bay Area, started multiple companies. Some were successful, some not so successful, but also launched a bunch of successful products. One of the things that I learned after having started, and along with my founding team, multiple companies, is at the end of the day, it's the people that make the difference. You know, what makes or breaks a company, it's not your TAM, it's not your pricing model. It's always about the people. Do you have folks that are, growth mindset minded? Do you have people that are willing to learn and are willing to be flexible and open-minded as the company scales? And when I thought about what was going to be my next chapter, along with my co-founders, we realized that there's this huge opportunity in the talent space. Companies, CEOs, CHROs, everybody you talk to, like, hey, talent is top of mind. But then when you actually figure out from them, like, but how much time do you actually spend investing in technology, investing in people, and you realize there's a mismatch in expectations there, right? And so for us, right from day one, it was a space that we felt very passionate about, a space where we felt there was an opportunity for a new player to come in and really focus on the engagement side, but in a new way. And I think, George, as we were discussing just right before the podcast, we were inspired by what was happening in marketing engagement automation. We saw what was happening in sales engagement automation. How are companies engaging with users? How are companies engaging with prospects? And that's where the inspiration really came from a product perspective is, why hasn't anyone thought about this, especially with talent at scale? Hyper-personalization, engaging with people at the right moment is so critical, and especially critical now when we are in such tight times in terms of the labor market.
Oh, yes, that's so true. And the trends tend to, if we look at the experience conversation we've been having for over a decade, at least 15 years in the HR tech space, that really started in B2C and B2B in that world, and became really the drumbeat here for candidate experience, for it's dovetailed into employee experience. And now when I look at what's been happening the last few years, as I'm looking at all of the growth capital and all of the innovation in our market, I see a lot of it going into other spaces too. And I see engagement, and I see this personalization that you're talking about, and automation and data, and how does that impact every interaction for the entire, in the sales and marketing pre and post, sale relationships. So that's a great background as far as how you started the company, what led you here. How I guess I have two questions, and you can take whichever one makes sense to go first. What is the core product? Because you mentioned a few different areas, but also how is it deployed? Whichever one makes sense to tackle first.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a talent engagement platform, and we sit right on top of a system of record, or wherever companies have their candidate database. And George, as you know, like, it can be a CRM, it can be an ATS, it can be lists that they have all over the place. So companies are first really struggling to figure out, how do I unify where all are my candidates today, right? And then number two, the problem, and I will start with actually the use cases that we try and really solve for, is there are two big ones. One is what we are hearing from the market in certain verticals is famine, right? So it's like, I just don't have candidates. Where do I find more candidates from? So we really try and come into those companies and figure out, listen, your applicant volume is drying up, but you have this massive database, which is probably fragmented, not unified, stale. And how do we help you reactivate that database? That's gold. And especially in today's market, that's gold. These are candidates that maybe have been your silver medalists. There have been people that have applied to you and you never spoke to them. You ghosted them, probably 95% of them, right? But how do we go back to them? How do we actually have a real conversation with them and understand where are they today in their career? Are they looking for a new opportunity? And then we try and re-engage them and reactivate them. So that's the famine situation. And the other one is the feast situation, where you are a well-known brand and every day hundreds of thousands of people are just applying. Yeah. And you don't know, you're just completely bogged down with applicants, and you have humans in the loop that need to review the resume, parse, look at it, whether does that make any sense, then try and schedule a phone interview. So it's really a weird world today that we are facing, where there's the famine side and the feast side. So we are deployed in both areas. Okay. We are deployed in the famine area, where we can go into your large database and try and reactivate candidates and bring them to active pipeline. We can be deployed in a feast situation where I need a 24/7 recruiter. I need somebody screening candidates, scoring them, scheduling interviews, and our product takes care of all that end to end. So ultimately, the ROI is twofold. One is really focused around speed. How fast can we engage somebody and bring them into an active candidate pipeline and get them hired? And number two, it's all around the experience and efficiencies, right? Have we built a delightful candidate experience where the candidate and job seeker says, okay, wow, this company really cares about me. They are hyper-personalizing and communicating with me at every touch point during the process. They're keeping me up to date. And I'm just having a very different experience with this company versus all the others that I've applied to, right? And that truly matters. So yeah, so those are the two big areas.
Yeah. So, and getting, specific, you talked about personalization, and that looks like it's cross-platform, whether it's the website or whether it's mobile, or you also, from what I've picked up in just the quick perusal that I've done, you're engaging via messaging or SMS. You've also got a conversational AI interface. I don't want to call it a chatbot, or it is, but it's conversational AI. And then you've got this employee referrals message that another sort of cornerstone to what you've got out there. And is this an end-to-end? Are these modules? How does the customer experience that?
Yeah, we really think about it as a platform. So we are stitching together these solutions. So you actually bring up a good point. Like, there are so many vendors out there, so many other players who do one of this, but the real magic is, how do you bring it all together? So there are three people that we really care about, right? We care about the candidate, the job seeker, we care about the recruiter, and we care about the hiring manager, right? So the way we've tried to stitch these solutions together is really focused around that. So let's talk about the job seeker. The job seeker is applying at 1 a.m. They're applying at midnight, and there is nobody on the other side. So they want an experience that's always on, right? And they want an experience not through email. I don't know how many ATSs that send out emails and they're constantly blocked, and the deliverability rates are so poor. And you know this, nobody's responding on emails anymore, right? So the mode in which you interact, it can be email, it can be text message, it can be WhatsApp. So we really think about, where is the candidate and how do we meet them with the right medium, right? Next comes is the message. So what are we communicating to them? So we allow recruiters and talent acquisition teams to build these communications. They can be notifications, messages, reminders, it doesn't really matter. all that suite, because it really builds on the candidate experience where they're not feeling lost. They know exactly where they are in the process, right? So that's all on the job seeker side. On the recruiter side, to your point, we built a text messaging tool. And the reason we built it was because when the candidates started responding, they wanted recruiters, sourcers also want a text messaging system by which they can go back and forth with the candidate. And they choose text messaging just because the open rate, the deliverability, the response rates are so much higher, right?
Yep.
Another is they don't want their text, their phone numbers to get clogged. So we take all that burden away from the recruiters. We provide them with unique numbers that they can use just to interact with their candidates. So yeah, and the last piece is the hiring manager. How do you make it a system that's so lightweight that the hiring manager doesn't think and roll their eyes, oh my God, I need to log into that clunky old legacy system, which I never want. Yeah. So it's all needs to be a win for all these three constituents in order to make the candidate experience the right experience.
Yeah, and that's, I think, there's a lot of there are a lot of experience focused solutions that are, and there's a place for many of them, but they're niche or siloed, versus engagement would need to be more broad and cross-channel and relevant at different stages in the process to really, when I think about engagement, I'm thinking about not just one point in time, but that.
Absolutely, yeah.
What does that personalization drive later on?
Yeah. That is such a great point, because not understanding what did they say with the screening questions, how do they respond to, can you stand on your feet for 8 hours a day, are you willing to do overtime work, do you have security clearance, right? Not understanding that, and then at some level down the funnel you're starting to have the same conversation, it's a moot point, right? So we want to tell the recruiter, listen, our technology has already had that conversation. So now your conversation is around convincing them of this job, right? And making sure that they are aligned to your cultural values and they're going to be a good fit. And that's what we want to enable for the recruiters versus, doing this kind of work that's repetitive, that stuff that technology can take over.
Yeah. And I've got one more product question for you before we talk about the deal a little bit. And you gave a great segue. You said our technology has already had that conversation for you. Is that principally where the AI is leveraged, is in that conversational interface, or how is the AI leveraged?
Yeah, multiple places actually. And that's to your point, why you need a suite or a platform versus single solutions, because you really need to understand the context of the job seeker end to end, right? So yes, right off the bat, when you're having a conversation, trying to understand what is the person saying. Are they talking about their current job title? Are they talking about their location? Are they talking about their preferences? So you need some form of natural language processing that can actually understand that. And as we collect and as we have millions and millions of conversations on a monthly basis, our AI and machine learning just becomes so much more sophisticated, right? So that's just one piece of it. But now let's say you've understood their skills, you've understood their background, you've understood their preferences, but you still need to do some form of job matching. You still need to say, is this person really a good fit? Or should I redirect them to another of my jobs because they might be a better fit there? So today what happens is like people are just trying to shove the same person down, that job. And what ends up happening is maybe they get the offer, 50% of the people are not showing up to work, or another 25% are quitting even when they show up, right? So it's a mismatch. So the other piece where the machine learning comes in is really trying to, based on preferences, based on skills, we are trying to do the matching, right? The last piece, to your point, is all around engagement. So what did they say during the process? How did they respond? Are they feeling happy? What was their net promoter score? What were their satisfaction rates? And we use that in order to build sort of a sentiment analysis score and say, how likely is this person to show up on the first day? How likely is that this person is upset? And if they are upset today, why? Are they upset because of the hiring manager? Are they upset because of the working conditions? So in short, AI is all through the process. And we don't talk about it like, hey, we are an AI. It's just buried and inherent and intrinsic in the product because it needs to work at various levels.
Yeah. And is there a particular type of hiring or roles that you're seeing Sense is adopted more for?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our initial take was this is going to work at high volume hiring, high scale hiring. What we are starting to recognize, and we do extremely well there. So we have tons of customers in blue collar, in logistics, manufacturing, warehousing. You can just imagine all those verticals. But then the pull just comes from all sorts of places. So healthcare starting to really take off in healthcare.
Yeah.
It's just the need there is so high. The need for engagement is so high that they need to drive automation and efficiencies, and also they need to bring in this hyper personalization, right? So we are starting to see pull from in healthcare, in knowledge workers too. So I think it's a solution that can be used in any vertical of choice. It's more important to better understand what are your current recruiting processes, and are you open to meeting the candidate and the job seeker where they are today. Because with millennials and Gen Zers, they don't want to talk through email. They don't necessarily want to talk to a human until they reach a particular point. And how do we help those companies rethink and reimagine their recruiting processes is key.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of that as well on the other side. Just it's the evolution from adoption from high volume into up into knowledge workers, even depending on the brand and depending on the kind of experience they're looking to provide. Okay, so this deal, 50 million, it's a lot of money, Series D, that brings your total to 90. Why now? Is there something happening internally or externally that drove you to close on this round now?
Yeah, so of course, it was just like yesterday when we went through the COVID shock, right?
Right.
And then when we came on the other side, when things started opening up, I mean, I think most TA organizations, CHROs realized, oh boy, I've just laid off, furloughed a bunch of my recruiters and sourcers. But this is the opportunity for me to actually invest in technology, reimagine the way I engage with my workforce, the way I engage with job seekers. And so we are starting to see this massive pull from the market. So, most of last year, we were just swimming underwater because we just had so much pull from the market. And then this is just a testament on our traction. So we've doubled our revenue, we've doubled the customer count, our retention numbers are amazing, and we just need a growth path.
Okay.
So in order to build on that momentum, we are a 200-person strong company now. In order to build on that momentum, we're being chased by a lot of investors, and lucky enough to be in this position where we were able to pick a partner that's a global partner, global investor, and can help us scale as we look to continue growing.
Yeah, I remember that it was a top VC, but who led the round? It was impressive.
Yeah, it was led by SoftBank, and we have Axel and Google Ventures and AVP. We have some really blue chip investors.
Yeah, I've heard of a few of those. Yeah. So that's good for you. Now, it also came with a $500 million valuation. I won't ask you which half of the unicorn you are, but what does that mean for Sense? What is that? What does a valuation like that mean to the company, to your employees, to the business?
Yeah, so I think very lucky, very privileged. For us, it's a milestone. It's a part of the journey. Number two, it's an external validation, right? So I think the number one thing for us is, and employees and outside community, even when we talk to companies and customers, it's an external validation, right? But for us, it's just the path in the journey. What's more important is, how are we delivering real value for our customers? Are we innovating on the product? Are customers coming back for more? And that's the true testament of what we are building. So for me, this is just part of the journey, and hopefully we'll continue growing from here. But it's good to sometimes get this external validation.
Yeah. Well, it's hugely validating, that's for sure. And now this is where the work starts again, or starts, right? So speaking of that, what are the plans for the funding? I got, based on your comments, that it's growth, a path to growth, but what does that mean? Is that product or sales, marketing, all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mix of both, but it always starts from like, how many of these use cases are we able to tackle for our customers? I think being in HR tech, what I've learned is my background it's been in B2B, it's been in consumer games, and now HR tech. What's different is I see a lot of players going into the market and telling customers what to do. We want to be in the world where we collaborate with them and reimagine the way they're hiring, right? And they'll reimagine the way they take care of these job seekers and candidates. Everyone's a human. And I think there's a real opportunity with technology that we can build these experiences together. So our movement is much more around the way recruiting and hiring is done needs to change. The way we understand job seekers needs to change. And it's not about like, hey, I am this big customer or this big company. Everybody should know about me. Let me push my way on you, right? It's more about understanding, well, what does the candidate, the job seeker wants? So I think the good news for us is doubling down on that is key. Number two is growing global is key. So we have plans to grow in Europe, ANZ next. And basically it's that. And with that, hopefully our trajectory continues to double year over year.
And what is that? Is that the goal? The long-term goal is to, the number is to double year over year, but what's sense going to be when it grows up? Or what's the long-term vision today?
Yeah, the vision is definitely all along, transforming the recruiting experience, right? Okay. Transforming the hiring experience, but very much a candidate-centric view. So how do we help job seekers find the right job instantly, right? So that is key for us. And there are two dimensions to this, right? One is that instant, fast, because people want that consumer experience. People want like, hey, I got up in the morning, I want to look for a job. How can I find the right job immediately, right? But the other key dimension is the right job. I don't want a job where I'm going to bounce the first day. I don't want a job that I'm just going to quit. I don't want a job where I don't understand the company's values and culture and, what are the expectations from me? So how do we match that with speed as one of the priorities? Because if you're not able to engage people fast, they're also going to leave. So that's the challenge that's facing every single company today. And we hope we can play a small part in that conversation.
That's great. Well, I could keep going, but we're about out of time. Where can folks find you or learn more about Sense?
Yeah, my email is just anil@sensehq.com. Pretty simple. And our website is www.sensehq.com. Would love to have conversation with as many like-minded people as possible and also hear other views.
Cool. Well, Anil, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I enjoyed the conversation, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Likewise. Thanks, George.
Take care.